So we ended the last video talking about this spectrum, about how many firms are there within our market, anywhere from lots to one. We're starting off with lots. We're really kind of starting at the highest end of the spectrum here with perfect competition. Now you can kind of see within the name, perfect competition implies that it is perfect. It is an ideal situation for us to observe, and therefore technically perfect competition is hypothetical. We're not going to get into all the different requirements that are necessary for perfect competition, but really what you guys just need to know is that perfect competition just means it's a market where there's many firms selling identical products. And we mean identical. We're not talking about like fast food restaurants where everybody sells burgers. No, their burgers are different, even a little bit. We're saying identical products. And so each firm is making a good that has no unique or defining characteristics. Now, a few different things about this. We will see that we might have some situations that are very close to perfect competition, and we'll be talking about those as if they are perfect competition. But we see that firms within this market are considered to be price takers. So we kind of have to think about what this means. A price taker. The opposite of this might be someone you call a price maker. That'd be someone who makes the price, or it's a business that determines the price. What we mean here by a price taker instead is that these businesses cannot influence the market price. Well, why? Because every single firm has such an insignificant part of the market that they don't have a lot of influence within the market. Like just think, we said there's lots of firms or many firms. So let's picture this as the market being like a pie. And we're going to have a pie chart that shows the sliver of everybody's pie. It would look something like this. And you look at that and it just looks like a bright pinwheel. And that's because there's so many different slivers. And so here's what I'm asking. If one of those little slivers decided to change their price, is that going to influence all the other slivers? Like, is everyone else going to say, oh my gosh, that one person changed their price, we need to keep up with them, or we need to change our price too? No, it's not going to be like that at all. One of the examples we use that's very close to perfect competition is like agriculture, right? Because we see that there's like tons and tons and tons of farmers, right? Many, many farmers selling nearly an identical product. I'm sure there is differences between the corns, but we see that like it's all the same. If one little farmer in Indiana changes their price and maybe lowers their price, are all the other farmers around the country going to look at that one little farmer and say, oh my gosh, he changed his price, we need to follow suit, we need to keep up with him? No. And so therefore we see that firms are price takers because they just have to go along with whatever the market is doing. Now we do say that firms maximize their profit where MC is equal to MR. Well, what exactly does that mean? What does it mean that MC is equal to MR, and why is that where we maximize our profit? Well, we're actually coming back to some words that you guys might remember or be a little bit familiar with. That MC right there stands for marginal cost, right? And we had talked about this before. Marginal cost is just that additional cost that we have. The same thing is true for businesses. Businesses have additional costs for every additional product they want to make. So for every single product that they want to make another of, it's going to cost them a little bit more money, an additional amount of money. And marginal cost is gradually increasing along the way. So we see that every time a company wants to make one more phone, that one more phone there's going to be some additional costs associated with just that one more phone, right? But then the MR stands for marginal revenue. And marginal revenue is the additional revenue that businesses get to sell one more of the product. It's very similar to that idea we talked about of marginal benefit. It's what the business is receiving. Or a better way to think about it, marginal price is really just equal to the selling price. Because if I'm a business and I'm selling a cell phone, right? Whatever I sell that cell phone for, if I sell it for $500, right? I am receiving $500 for it. That's the additional amount of money, the additional amount of revenue I'm receiving for selling that phone. So let's talk about why it is that we maximize profit where MC equals MR. If we had a scenario where our marginal cost is less than our marginal revenue, what that means is that it costs us less to make one of the products than we're selling it for. And if we do that, we should keep going, right? Because what that means is for every single cell phone that we keep on making, we're going to make a profit off each additional one. So we should keep making them because we're still making a profit off each one. Now, because we see that marginal cost is increasing, eventually, if we're to put this on a graph, marginal cost and marginal revenue would collide. They would intersect. These lines would. And we would see there's a point where marginal cost is equal to marginal revenue. And here's what that means. That means that it costs you the exact same amount to produce that product as it is that the selling price is. So you're breaking even, right? Like you sell it for $500 and it cost you $500 to make that one. So you break even. You don't gain any extra money. You don't lose any extra money. So that's kind of why we're good there, but that's where we maximize our profit. We weren't making any profit on that. And if we were to go further than that, at the very next point, since marginal cost keeps getting bigger, at that very next point, we would see that our marginal cost now, instead of being equal, would be greater than our marginal revenue. And if it costs you more to produce than you're selling it for, you're losing money. And why would you want to lose money? Because if you're losing money, you're losing profit. So that's why we stop where marginal cost is equaling marginal revenue. Guys, you remember this idea back from Unit 1 where we said we stop doing something where the marginal cost is equal to the marginal benefit? This is the exact same idea, because once we go past that point, we're losing benefit, or in this case, we're losing profit. All right, a few more other things about perfect competition. What we see is because there's so many firms, there's no restrictions on entry into the market, meaning that like it's really easy for any other company or business to join in the market, just like with farming. Like there's no real barriers to people entering in. You just have to have some farmland, have the materials, have the land, all that kind of stuff, and you're good. Now, what we end up seeing is that new businesses will enter that market if others are making profit. If someone walks in, they look around and they say, hey, all these people are making profit, that means I can get in here and make profit, right? That means more businesses will enter into the market. But obviously, as more enter in, those profits get spread thinner and thinner and thinner. Now, firms exit the market if other firms are incurring economic loss. Once you start losing money, businesses look at that and they're like, what am I doing here? I'm losing money. Like, why should I keep going? I have better things I can be doing with my time and my resources. And we see then that the entry of new businesses or the exiting of new businesses, it stops whenever firms make no profit. Now, this is kind of a confusing idea to us sometimes because we're like, no profit? Well, why are you even there? Well, keep in mind, no profit still means that you're paying all your bills. No profit still means that you're paying your salary, you have a roof over your head, because all of those are factored into your costs. Profit, saying there's no profit just means you're making no extra money on top of paying all your costs. But I want to come back to this second idea we had there, where it says firms exit the market if other firms incur economic loss. Because there are some cases where we see that businesses wouldn't quite exit the market if they start incurring a loss. We do see sometimes, instead of completely exiting the market, they just shut down temporarily. Easy question to ask. Why do ice cream shops shut down in the winter, right? And I think this is pretty obvious to us. We're like, because it's cold and nobody wants ice cream. But let's kind of break down why exactly that is. We see, like, let's say what their summer sales look like. We're just going to kind of run through some hypothetical numbers. Maybe they have to pay $2,000 for rent, this ice cream shop. Maybe it costs them $1,500 for supplies like the cones and the ice cream. They pay their workers another $1,500 for that week. And so they have total costs of $5,000, right? Let's suppose that's what it is. So they have to pay $5,000 to operate, but they sell $7,500 worth of ice cream. Well, that means they make a profit of $2,500 because you take your sales, your total revenue, minus your total cost. They have $2,500 of profit. That's awesome. Now, let's suppose they decide to produce during the winter. Well, they still have to pay their rent no matter what. It's not like the landlord gives you a break just because it's the winter. But they probably wouldn't buy as many supplies or hire as many workers because they don't need to. They know the demand is going to decrease during the winter, so they don't need as many inputs or many workers, whatever it might be. So we see the total cost in the winter is $3,000. But remember, not a lot of people like buying ice cream in the winter. And so let's say your total sales that week are only $750. Well, what you notice is you actually lose money, right? You lose profit, $2,250. And we see sometimes that it might not even be worth it to continue producing. Sometimes it's better just to shut down. Because, for example, think about it this way. If you just shut down and you closed up your shop, you'd still have to pay your rent, but you wouldn't have to, pay for your supplies. You wouldn't have to pay any workers. So your total cost would just be your rent. And even though you have no sales, this way you're only losing $2,000. Now, you're still losing money. Why wouldn't you just exit the business? Well, guys, we know, like ice cream shops know that it's just the winter. In the summer, they're going to be making bank, right? And so they realize that, hey, sometimes even when incurring an economic loss, it's worth it just to shut down for a little bit rather than totally exit the market. And that's why we see during the winter, like ice cream shops will shut down and then they'll start back up in the spring. It's not like they completely close down and leave and we have to have new ice cream shops start up in town every spring, right? So finishing up with perfect competition, a couple examples we said agriculture is a good example of this. Another one is foreign exchange. Foreign exchange, as you guys may or may not know, is like the exchange of currencies. And the reason we say foreign exchange would be an example is because technically there's many sellers of currencies, right? If you go to a little kiosk like at the airport, or if you enter into a new country, a lot of times they're all around outside of the airport. There's a lot of sellers, but they're selling an identical product. Like that money is the exact same that they're selling. And therefore they have to just kind of go along with the market price. But this is a weird one to think of because, money isn't really a good or a service. It's a currency. And we'll talk more about that in Unit 5. But perfect competition, like we said, many firms selling absolutely identical products. And this is the absolute ideal situation. Now, what we're going to be doing next class is we're going to take a look at what some of the production decisions look like for businesses like this.